So I am very pleased to welcome our speaker today. Paul W. Martin Jr. is a native of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree at MTSU and is the first graduate of the honors program. You can find his honors thesis on economics, among the other honors theses in our library upstairs on the second floor, the thesis defense room. He also earned a JD degree from the Nashville School of Law and is licensed to practice in Tennessee. Mr. Martin is a Navy veteran and has been either an initial investor, officer, or director of 5 public companies. Mr. Martin is a member of the Honors College Board of Visitors, and he is our longtime friend and benefactor. You may have seen the name of the building in which we are sitting. In 2000, he and his brother Lee Martin challenged MTSU with a generous donation, one that would be matched by the university, to construct the Paul W. Martin Sr. Honors Building, which opened its doors to staff in December of 2003. Among other things, Mr. Martin continues to support our honors publications, scholarships, and awards, and he often reminds us he is only a phone call away if we need anything. Perhaps Mr. Martin will share with us today some of the history of this building and the vision behind it, as well as some of the reasons why he chooses to give back to our college and invest in all of you. Mr. Martin is the Chief Managing Member of Clarity Resources, LLC, a mentor capitalist group specializing in business architecture, and Director and Chief Financial Officer of Pro to Serve, an Oak Ridge-based B2B provider of professional project services. He's also served on numerous community boards. Please join me in welcoming our good friend and our distinguished speaker, Paul Martin.
Hi, guys. I want you to know this is not a lecture. This is a discussion. And I'm going to pull up a chair here and sit down and enjoy the day, as I hope you will. I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. Each one of you is smarter than I am. I wouldn't meet the qualifications for getting in the honors program anymore. So you all have already achieved more than I have in your academic pursuits, and I wish you well. I wish you continued success in that endeavor, because I think you're going to make a difference. I want to start by telling you all a story about a man named Bilbro. He came to Nashville about 65 years ago and went to the Chamber of Commerce to have a discussion. He was an executive for the State Farm Insurance Agency. And in the pre-interstate days, the requirement to locate offices where their customers were was a big deal. And as exists today, cities and towns and states are always competing for the privilege of hosting expanded businesses, especially white-collar professional businesses such as the insurance giant State Farm. Well, he went to the Chamber of Commerce and they said, "Oh great, we're happy to have a meeting today. We'll talk to you. Please have a seat." So Mr. Bilbro sat outside the conference room and they started talking. Well, he sat. And he sat. And he sat. And he sat. And after a couple of 3 hours, he got up. He went back to the Hermitage Hotel, and he got out a phone book. Now, has anybody in here actually ever seen a phone book? Well, not you, John. You still use one.
Pretty much.
And in that phone book, in those days, they used to have maps in the back. There was all kinds of helpful information. They would tell you when the seasons would change. It was almost like a farmer's almanac that people paid to put stuff in. But there was a map. So he started drawing a circle around, and sure enough, there was Murfreesboro, Tennessee within that circle. So the next morning, he got up, he drove to Murfreesboro, and he went in to see the Chamber of Commerce, and they said, well, come right in. And we weren't doing anything. And those days, the Chamber of Commerce had about 3 members, because there wasn't a lot of business in Murfreesboro. And he said, we want to relocate several hundred jobs to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Well, by the time he left the Chamber of Commerce that afternoon, he had a handshake deal and was all set up. And State Farm operated its regional center here for decades until the COVID made an office building unnecessary anymore, and now all those people work remotely. But you can still see the building here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Created all those jobs and all that interest in Tennessee. Right here in Murfreesboro. Not in Nashville, but in Murfreesboro. There's another fellow you may have heard about, Jennings Jones. Jennings Jones was a longtime benefactor of the business school right here at MTSU. In fact, the school is named after him. Well, in his time, Jennings decided he was going to create a second fellowship. There was one here. He'd already created a chair of excellence here at MTSU. And he decided that, by George, he was going to create one at the University of Tennessee as well. So he called up the University of Tennessee and said, I want to give you $625,000. That used to be a lot of money. And that was the maximum amount that the state of Tennessee would match for an endowed chair. So he was talking about $1.3 million to endow a chair up at the business school at the University of Tennessee. Well, the University of Tennessee politely informed him that they didn't apply for matches, and unless he was willing to write the entire check for $1.3 million, they would put him on a waiting list and would perhaps consider him at a later date. That did not sit particularly well with him. So he came back to MTSU and, in fact, gave the $625,000 to MTSU and created a second chair of excellence over here at the Jennings A. Jones School of Business, and you are getting the benefit of that. Now, what do those two stories have in common, and why do I start a discussion about the Honors College building with those two stories? I'll ask you one question first before I give you the answer. Let's see a show of hands here. How many of you students, not you, John, how many of you considered MTSU as your first choice when the colleges you applied? Let's see, how many chose MTSU number one and really wanted to come here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, a third of you. That's the point I want to make. Murfreesboro, in those stories, and in many of your own paths, was the second choice. Nashville was the first choice for State Farm. Knoxville was the first choice for Jennings Jones, and for many of you, another university was the place where you wanted to go. Well, MTSU was my first choice because I essentially flunked out of the university where I was attending before I joined the Navy. I was at Valparaiso University, and it was just amazing. You'd be surprised how much they thought I talked like a Southerner up there, and it was just delightful, and I got invited to every party there was and just went around and had a wonderful old fun time. And there was this thing about classes, but I had an allowance. I didn't need to be bothered by that. So I, facing 4 Ds and an F in my first semester in college, with ice forming on the inside of my dormitory wall because it was made out of concrete block. They could have benefited greatly from our concrete school here if somebody could have. I saw a poster for this wonderful warm jungle in Vietnam defending American ideals and liberties, so I went down to the recruiting office and signed up for the Navy and said, I want to go to Vietnam. I just want to get warm. Well, of course, they never sent me there, and so I survived. But when I got out, I knew what I wanted to do, and MTSU became my first choice. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my college career and my future career, and so I came to MTSU before the Honors College. June McCash and Barbara Haskew had an idea. They had an idea that MTSU could be more than a teacher's college. This was the originally called the Middle Tennessee State Teachers College, I believe. John, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But that was its roots. We were supposed to graduate principally women to go teach school. That was our job. That was our legacy. And at 40 years old, not a whole lot had changed in the history of the university. It had had a few expansions. It had done some things. But Barbara Haskew and June McCash and several other enlightened faculty members said, there's a whole lot more we can do. Let's educate some minds. And I happened to be walking by. And they said, let's get him. And they talked me into enrolling into the honors program. I went through college in 2 years and 1 semester. I took 21 hours each semester, went to intercession and summer school, and finished up in that time. And I couldn't have done that without the honors program. It was very valuable to me. And the only reason I was the first graduate is because at graduation, there were 2 of us, but I was the first one across the stage to get to graduate. Luck of the draw made me the first. And I asked for a copy of the book today. Philip was kind enough to lend me his book to show you this gosh awful picture back here. That actually is me. I was skinny at one point in my life. And I gave $100 to the university honors program, and it was such a big deal, they took a picture and put it in the Daily News Journal when people actually read the newspaper. So they were trying desperately to change MTSU's trajectory from being a pretty good teacher's college to being a multi-degree educational institution where higher achieving students could find a path that would boost them along their career. I'm the first person in my family to have ever obtained a college degree. My father did not obtain one, nor did my mother. Yet they had a significant impact on my life and on the life of this community. Now why is community important, and why is this building here? If you walk around campus, you'll see the Margaret Wright Music Building. She taught me how to play piano. You'll see the T. Errol Hinton Performing Arts Center. He taught me music, how to play, how to sing, which he didn't do a good job at, but that's what he taught me. You'll see the Beasley Memorial in Music. Horace Beasley taught me how to play music. I marched in the campus school marching band. Buck Boulding over at the tennis academy, or at the tennis courts. Buck was an attorney that worked with me lots, but more than that, was a personal friend. And I can go on and on about the names that you see around the campus. Murfreesboro was a place where we knew that the eagle wasn't going to land. We were going to have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And so the people that ran the town, the people that were the business leaders and that were the successes as measured by monetary achievements, essentially took an interest in the people that were coming up after them. And they tried to raise them by their bootstraps. They tried to mentor them and give them an opportunity. So I grew up in an environment where people who had absolutely no business messing around with a snot-nosed kid, which I was, who was absolutely, I was the worst driver in town. The worst driver in town. the Murfreesboro police would pull me over, and they got tired of writing traffic tickets. They would just call my mother, which was worse than any judge, and she would come by and grab me by the scruff of the neck and drag me home and ground me for 24 hours. But it was that kind of a town where we took care of each other, we took care of ourselves, and with that kind of an opportunity to learn about giving back to a community, when the chance came to do something meaningful for the Honors College program, my brother and I took it. But that was also a second choice. Interesting story. Although my father did not graduate from college, he attended the University of Tennessee's engineering school. I think I have a lot of his DNA because in his third year, in the middle of the Depression, he was the number 16 member of some national engineering fraternity, Lambda Chi Alpha, I think. And he enjoyed partying too. So in his junior year, his father called him and said, "You are partying way too much. I'm not paying for college anymore." And he says, "Well, I can't get a job. It's the middle of the Depression, Dad." He says, "Exactly. Come home, go to work, grow up." That was a bit of a shocker for Dad. So Dad went back to Memphis, went to work in the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company plant, making tires. Didn't like that. Didn't like that at all. So he went to work for the Memphis Power and Light Company, which became the Tennessee Valley Authority. And once again, his boss mentored him and said, "Paul, you should go sit for the electrical engineer's exam, professional engineer's exam." Now in those days, the exams were given by proctors, and you did not have to have a college degree to become a professional licensed engineer. So he went to take that exam, and he faced a great deal of prejudice because the proctor decided that no one who did not graduate from the University of Tennessee and did not have a full degree was ever going to be an engineer in the state of Tennessee. So he made up a whole test that was essentially quadratic equations. It turned out my father's hobby, I have a weird family, so I apologize, but my father's hobby was quadratic equations. He would love to chew on a math equation. Well, he aced the test. And he got his professional engineering license and went to work for the Tennessee Valley Authority and rose as far as he could rise before the prejudice of not having a college degree stopped him from rising any further. He was the area manager headquartered here in Murfreesboro and oversaw nuclear, steam production, gas, coal-fired plants, and hydroelectric facilities as well. He was the only manager in the different TVA districts that covered all of those. And he liked Murfreesboro, and he was happy to stay here and grow up and grow old and eventually pass. So we called the University of Tennessee, my brother and I. We called the University of Tennessee and we said, "Do you have an honors program?" That was my contribution to my brother's idea. They said, "Yes, we have an honors program." And we said, "Do you have a building?" "No, we don't." We said, "Why don't we give you a building? We're going to name it after my father who had attended your university, and let's make that a bit to remember him by." University of Tennessee said, "Well, that'll cost $4 million. We said, "Okay." It's going to cost something. That's when $4 million was real money. And they said, "We'll call you back." And we said, "Okay." Now, it didn't bother me that they weren't in any hurry to call us back, because it just didn't bother me, but it really bothered my brother. Because my brother followed my father's footsteps, kind of one of those family things. He was going to graduate from UT, which he did. He got his undergraduate degree and his PhD there as a mechanical engineer, and he's was something called a torchbearer, which is their highest award. So he thought he was a big deal at UT, and they should answer his calls. When he calls them up and says, "I'm going to give you a building." Well, they didn't. And after about a month, he got really ticked off. And he called me up one day in a bit of a heat, and he said, UT still hasn't called me back yet. And I said, well, bro, I'm over here at MTSU, and I'm looking at Wink Midget's building. Wink Midget taught in the business school here. His son Don is on our advisory board. And he and my father were golf partners every Sunday out here at Stones River Country Club. They would go out there and play golf. They actually built that club together. They were the members of that club. Built that club originally with their hands. Didn't have a contractor. Old man Huddleston sold them the land. They had somebody that did the designs. And they went out with hammer and nail after World War II in 1947 and 48 and built that club as a community project of the members. And in fact, my father did the electrical wiring. Good thing he had a license. And some of it's still out there today, and it's not very good. It's wore out. If the lights start to flicker, if you're out at the club, leave. But they built that, and then they became an even tighter knit community. And Wink and my father would play golf every Sunday. So I was sitting there, happened to be over here for a football game or something. We got big crowds for the football games there. We might have 100 people go to a football game back in that day. So they were all, I had been to that, and I was sitting in front of the building, and I said, I'm sitting in front of Wink Midget's building here. And Lee said, Wink Midget has a building named after him at MTSU? And I said, well, yes. And he says, that's where we're putting the Honors College. I'd just been waiting for him to say that, but I had to bait him. You know how it is with siblings. You have to kind of work on it. And so sure enough, we went and saw Dr. Walker and Barbara Haskew, who is still here, and said, we will give you half of the cost of the Honors College building if you match it. Well, Dr. Walker, Dr. Haskew, they were all over that. They said, that is great, let's do it. But then they went and saw the foundation people, the people who raised money for MTSU, and they said, we've never raised that kind of money. In fact, the head fundraising guy quit. He left. Dr. Walker immediately went to Southern Illinois University as president. He got recruited away. And so the project sat there and the clock ticked. Now, why is the clock important? The clock's important because we had given them 2 years to raise the match. If they didn't raise the match in 2 years, well, we got the money back, plus interest. And that also was a time when interest rates were pretty good, and the interest accumulated several hundreds of thousands of dollars while that clock was working. That money, by the way, was taken to fund the initial funding of the Martin Scholarship Award. So those, if any of you here are recipients of that award, you're getting it because the university drug its feet. It was slow. Well, Dr. Sidney A. McPhee came on board in August with 5 months left to raise the money. And his first trip as president was to bring Elizabeth and himself to Knoxville, where I was living at the time, to see me and my brother, to say, hi, I'm the new guy. Can I have some more time to raise that money? And we went out and we had a great dinner. It was really super. And we said no. We said no because we said, does MTSU really want to change? Do they really want to be more? Do they really want to become the number one? And we told Dr. McPhee that if you really want to become, and if your faculty really wants to become, and if you have the personal aspiration to succeed, you'll raise this money. Dr. McPhee, in 5 months, raised the match. Although, except for the last $25,000, which is this room, which my brother and I chipped in extra in honor of our mother, our late mother, so that she would be a part of the project as well. But he raised all of that money essentially by himself and created the match, met the match, and so you are today enjoying the fruits of this building and the high profile that the Honors College has. Now, all of this is nice story, right? But I'm a bit of a tightwad. I don't like to give money just because it's nice to give. I want some results. I want something for it. What I want from that donation is for you to change the world. Not my brother and I, not the professors that are teaching you. We want you to change the world. And the Honors College at MTSU is on its way to do that. More Fulbright scholars graduate or are sourced from this program than the rest of the universities in Tennessee combined. For those of you who haven't applied for Fulbright or Goldwater or any of the other numerous awards that have been created and received by this program, I encourage you to do that because it's life-changing. You will see firsthand what other places in the world are like. You'll be able to make your own judgments based upon the knowledge and the foundation you have garnered here about what you will like and what you don't like, and how people can live and not live and succeed side by side, anywhere in the world. Those of you who did choose this university as your number one choice, you're very wise, probably beyond your years, because this university's education, especially as reflected in the University Honors Program, is greater in its impact than any other similar program in the entire Southeast United States. I can say that because I served on the Board of Trustees of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, which accredits 850 universities and essentially what would be considered the Old South, as well as international accreditations for universities that want to have courses that are recognized for credit here in the United States. You are actually in a place where you have the opportunities to succeed beyond the reputation of MTSU. And that's because within MTSU is this University Honors Program. There's another secret to the success of this, by the way. As you all may know, the current president is still Sidney A. McPhee. Raising that match upset the apple cart. Nobody believed it was possible to begin with. But ever since then, old man McKinnon came along and he said, "You mean you can give money and have a building named after you?" So while this building was under construction, he gave $1 million for a match, and they built the Sports Hall of Fame over there, right by the football stadium. When Dr. Buchanan was looking toward his final days of life as a Nobel laureate, he had many opportunities to leave his money and his reputation. He chose MTSU over Ivy League, over, it's incredible how many people wanted him to honor them. And he had greater connections with other universities. But he chose MTSU, and the Buchanan Fellows program is representative of the monies that he left here at MTSU for your benefit, for those students who have come. Jennings Jones, the trustees of his estate, fund, or his foundation, fund the honors transfer scholarships. If you're an honors transfer recipient of that, you write them a thank you note. So while the physical structure of the building is not its most important aspect, the education you receive is its most important aspect. But it has attracted financial attention, academic attention, and I hope you will build on that to bring national attention not only to this university, but to your own careers, and that you will make a difference. The secret sauce that went into making the university honors building came about because, first of all, there was a community that cared. Secondly, because there were people and academics who saw the potential at MTSU. And perhaps third, because MTSU was a second choice. It's a second choice after the University of Tennessee. But you are the first choice. You are exactly who needs to be sitting in these seats. And you can make a difference, not only in your own lives, but in the worlds where you live, the communities that you can serve, and you can bring back to this university and this institution and this college the talent that is being poured into you and the opportunities that you don't even know are out there. I had no idea when I gave $100 just to help them get a little PR that it would turn into this. You never know where your steps will take you. Just look forward and see what it can do for you. Well, that is the story of how this building came to be and how the University Honors Program has evolved. I will say one more thing. There's a second reason the program itself has been a success, and that's that the Dean of the Honors College has always come from the faculty of the university. Now, why is that important? If I told you money, would you be surprised? Well, it's about money. If you look around the southeast United States, and you'll remember previously I told you that you were in the best honors program in the southeast. If you look around at other honors programs, they are led by really smart, great people with huge names. People who have been on the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or graduated from Harvard or something like that. The other deans in the universities hate their guts. They don't like somebody riding in on a white horse to show the country bumpkins how they should be doing education in their hometown, because they invested their lives there. So they don't really care for all of these people to come in from the outside and tell them what to do. And you may not know this, but your honors professors are actually supported by the schools they come out of, because the funding formula for public education does not pay enough for them to come teach. Every dean that assigns a teacher into this program takes a hit that he has to spread through his department. But because the deans of the Honors College comes from faculty, or has come to date from the faculty of MTSU, they know where the bodies are buried. They can go over, they can talk to Dr. Van Patten and say, "Now listen, don't you remember?" "No, I don't want to remember that." "Well, then let me have another teacher." and that works. That's care. That's care for you. So take advantage of your program. Remember that relationships do matter. Giving back does matter. And will somebody go out there and make this world better? Please. Okay, guys? We are counting on you. Quicker the better. I'd like to see something before the 100th anniversary. They're going to have to roll me on a wheelchair. So, well, that's all I have to say. If anyone has any questions or comments or would like something elaborated, I'm certainly open to that. Yes, sir.
So one thing, a lot of things stuck out about everything that you've just said, but one thing in particular that I'd like to ask about. You said when you were talking about your experience in college here, you said that Murfreesboro is a city where people take care of took care of each other. I'm sure, as you know, and as I experienced with 5 o'clock traffic jams, Murfreesboro is a rapidly expanding city.
Yes.
So how has that affected the city, the university, and the honors college? In your opinion, is it a net positive, a net negative, or is it mixed?
I think you're asking me about growth.
I am asking you about growth, yes.
Well, as it turns out, you're at ARIC, over here in the business school, is running a program that Jennings Jones funded,
Okay.
that I happen to be the chair of, in which we have 20 students, 12 students, a bunch of students of that, who are working on an urban planning grant program. In the old days, geez, I sound like my grandpa. In times past, the city fathers would get in the car and ride around town and say, you know, we need a road here. And it's a little bigger than that now. Mistakes were made. The city fathers decided that they could get free trash collection, so they turned over the dump to Waste Management, who now brings in waste material from a zillion counties. That's, just so you know, that's $1 billion a year, that hole in the ground out there for Waste Management. They make $1 billion a year out of that hole in the ground. They're gonna fight and do whatever they can do to keep the dump open. But nobody realized that because they weren't playing on a level playing field. So there has been a lot of things that are necessary to institutionalize knowledge or to draw on the institutional resources for knowledge in order to level that playing field. The traffic is just one of them. I don't know, for example, why we don't have a commuter train that goes from here to Nashville, you know, a couple of times a day. But I'm told, when we looked at that question, that there are 60 trains a day that run down that track, up and down that track. I don't know how they'd fit a commuter train, but somebody ought to be looking at that. I hope they are. The water, the strain on our water resources and our sewer resources here, how do you finance that? How do you pay for it? What do you do with it? It may be solved by the sale of the electric utility here. The electric utility here was sold, and 90%, this is not common knowledge, but it's open knowledge, it's not secret. 90% of the income from the trust that was established from that money is supposed to go to infrastructure projects. Okay, maybe they're gonna expand the sewer system. Maybe they're gonna fix parking. I don't know. But the resources are there if the wisdom is there. And that's what we hope you will garner with your education. It's not only smarts, but wisdom, and knowing when to do something and when not. So, is it good that Murfreesboro and Rutherford County have grown? I honestly tell you, I like the look of Middle Tennessee State University much more than I did Middle Tennessee State University Teacher, or Middle Tennessee Teacher College. It's a much better look, and your opportunities are much better because of that growth. Growth is always faces the not in my backyard, the NIMBY problem. But it's inevitable if you plan to grow up and get married and have children. You're going to want your children to have the same opportunity or a better opportunity than you have. That implies growth. So we have to figure out how to grow intelligently, with wisdom, and productively that supports communities rather than overloads them. We're not there yet, but I hope we're working toward it.
Thank you.
Certainly. Anybody else? Or everybody want to get out on this beautiful day early? I don't blame you a bit, I did. And by the way, one little plug here. The department printed 300 of these. They've got about 150 left. You are now part of this history. And give up Starbucks for 2 days and go up and buy one of these from John, because you will put it away in a drawer and you won't look at it until you move into your first house and you're unboxing the box and you're putting them up on the shelf, and then you're going to sit down for a whole afternoon and you're going to say, gosh, I'm part of this. So it's a good investment. I would encourage you to acquire one. Well, thank you all very much.